You're listening to a Pop House Network podcast for developers by developers. Welcome to OffHeap episode 78. Hey everyone, we're back after the beginning of the year, and we're finally recording a little bit recharged from taking a break from the holidays and really not doing and thinking of anything has been so great. My name is Freddie Guime. I'm one of the distinguished engineers here at Expedia, and I'm here with my usual suspects.
Everybody, Bob Paulin, independent software consultant, Apache Software Foundation member, Java champion, and CJUG board chair.
Hey everyone, Josh Juno, Jakarta EE, Java EE developer, author, speaker, podcaster, and Apache NetBeans PMC.
Everyone, I'm Michael Manella, Senior Director responsible for open source Spring development, author, speaker, Java champion, curmudgeon at large.
And before we dive into our topics, I wanted to thank our sponsors. Today's show is sponsored by Datadog, a monitoring and analytics platform that integrates with over 450 technologies, including AWS services, Dockers, and Kubernetes. Datadog's platform brings together metrics, traces, and logs in one place, so you can get full visibility into your environment and improve your application performance. With machine learning-based alerts, customizable dashboards, and distributed tracing, Datadog makes it easy to unify disparate data sources so you can troubleshoot faster. Start your free Datadog trial today. Listeners of this podcast will receive a free t-shirt once you install the agent and create one dashboard. Visit javaoffheap.com/Datadog to get started. Again, that URL is javaoffheap.com/Datadog. And we thank them for essentially keeping our glasses full and our mics rolling. Thanks, Datadog. All right. So hopefully everybody has to shovel the same
Happy
amount
2023.
Happy 2023.
Yes. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
No, I was one of the funniest parts for people that don't know this is like we get so much snow in December.
Seattle?
I know.
Are you, wait, back up. Are you like, come on.
There were more than 3 snowflakes in the day. Like,
Mr. I moved there for the weather. How's that weather working out for you now?
It was kind of crazy actually. If you search for like Seattle 2022 December on like Instagram and TikTok, essentially everything was sheets of ice in hills. And people decided that it's still a good time to drive. And
I have heard about that.
Yeah, and you can see just like one car after the other, they like bump each other and they just like slide all the way down the hill. It's like, no, why would you do that? Like,
My sister-in-law was sharing some very entertaining videos of like car would stop, or like people sliding down, or
The
like,
wheels aren't moving, but the car still is.
Yep.
gosh,
So
no,
there's prime for memes. Freddie, you were okay? Family's okay? Like, no, doesn't hurt?
Oh yeah, no, like it's like you come from you respect winter, so it's like yep, I'm staying home. I got all the beer I need for the next 3 weeks. I'm good.
But you didn't have. But being out here, you didn't have hills. So like, there is an element to this that you did not. You don't have experience with.
Okay, black ice is the same. It doesn't matter if you're flat or on a hill. Black ice is still black ice. So
That's fair. That's fair.
So it's just you're even extra, like if you don't go out when there's black ice on the flat road, you definitely don't go out when there's flat ice on a hill. Like it's you're just asking for your insurance to go up, really. So but yeah, all right. So let's dive in. All right. I think the first news item is from Josh.
Yeah, Glassfish 7. It was released in December. And about the middle of December, Glassfish 7 came out. It's always nice to see a Glassfish release because you know that means Jakarta EE or Java EE has an update. So now it's Jakarta EE, and Jakarta EE 10 is what is supported in Glassfish 7. So, I'm not sure that I would recommend using this thing in production because, again, Glassfish is not really commercially supported. It's an open source, application server. However, it's always nice to see it updated, and it does have some good updates to help the platform move forward. So,
have there been updates to any of the commercial offerings? Wildfire, Wildfire,
and I believe Open Liberty,
Tomcat.
yeah,
and Tomcat. Yep. Pyara, I'm still waiting for Pyara 6. Its community is out. So Pyara 6 community was released. And what that means is Pyara 5 is being shut down. Like they're not going to deliver it any longer. So you pretty much have to upgrade if you're going to continue using it, which is good, in my opinion. But I'm waiting for Pyara 6 Enterprise.
We always cover Glassfish, but what about in its releases, which are related to the Jakarta releases? Where do the app servers that are commercially supported, the WebSpheres, the BEAs, where do those land?
Liberty.
Exactly. Yeah. Where do those land in with regards to when do they get this stuff out?
It really does seem like they're a few months behind. Typically you do get the Glassfishes first, and you can certainly go and find, betas and release candidates of Pyara and others. But the bigger ones like, BEA, I don't think is actually around anymore, is it? There's
Logic,
IBM.
I honestly don't even know.
Yeah. Oracle does do WebLogic now. I don't think that they've got
it's Oracle, it's not BEA, but it's WebLogic.
Yeah. I don't think that they've gotten a release yet for Jakarta 10. But that's a good question. I can't say I really know the release.
Yeah, I just Googled Tommy, which is an open source one, and they're on 9.
The reason I ask is, thinking of our average listener, they're probably, to your point, like Glassfish isn't production supported, so that's probably not what they're actually.
Right.
That's not their day to day. So, like, what is day to day? Where are we at with adoption by the big guys, if you will?
Yeah. So I'm looking at Oracle WebLogic Server 14C, and I can't. It doesn't even say anything about Jakarta.
Yeah, but a lot of them make it hard to find.
Yeah. I would have to kind of dig into it a little bit, but I typically they seem to be a little bit behind when it first comes out. You're really, on fresh ground, and I wouldn't really recommend, in my opinion, putting anything in production right away with a new Jakarta EE release. I would wait a couple of months until you really get some of those bigger players in the market.
Is Glassfish still the reference art implementation?
Jakarta EE doesn't really have a reference implementation, honestly. But Glassfish is one of the first, to go, of course, because it's Oracle led and whatnot. So, yeah.
All right. Next one on the news is Kotlin 1.8 is released.
Yep, that's another one. I'm not really too familiar with exactly what's involved with Kotlin 1.8, but I do know it was released in December there, and does contain a couple of nice features. If you look at the release notes on that thing, you can see that there's new experimental functions for the JVM. Actually, it's recursively copying or deleting directory content, so that sounds kind of nice. There's improved performance with Kotlin Reflect. There's some new compiler options. And it says there's improved Objective-C Swift interoperability. So that's kind of nice. And compatibility with Gradle 7.3. So an upgrade there. So just kind of a dot release, it sounds like, but it does sound like it's got some pretty good highlights if you're into Kotlin.
No, actually, I do like that they're targeting bytecode. They can generate JVM 19 bytecode if you wanted to, because I think like before Kotlin was only like yeah, whatever 52, which whatever was JDK 8 was. And I was like, well, they're adding things to the bytecode. It will be kind of nice to see, and it's kind of fun to see now that they're there. And I bit the bullet. I created my first Kotlin this past month. We use it for like an internal tool. So
Nice.
interesting language. It does take away the verbosity, and if you are an IntelliJ user, it's kind of how they cheat. You can half of what's happening already, because that is what IntelliJ is giving you the hints on Java. So the way that it puts in like what the parameters are and stuff like that, it's almost the same way you will write it in a Kotlin application. So if you've been using Java on IntelliJ for a while, it's kind of like they were getting you used to the way that Kotlin looks like. So
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I really, if you're looking to get into Kotlin and web development or web applications, look at KTOR. That's a pretty good framework. That's by IntelliJ as well, for Kotlin, and it's pretty slick, nice and quick and easy to use.
Now, next one on the news, JDK 20 is in ramp down.
Yep, and it looks like it's a ramp down phase 1. So, I'm not way into what the terminology of these ramp downs is, like if they can still get new features in at this point, or if anybody else knows, I'm not sure. But I do know that it seems like a pretty small release, in my opinion.
No, that's where the lightweight traits are, right? That's what I thought. Like, or is it because? Yeah, I don't think it's on 19, right? Like it was. Yeah, where's Loom?
Loom.
Oh yeah, so Loom,
threads.
it's the second release, right? It's the second preview.
Second preview, yeah. The big question right now is Loom going to come out of preview in 21, or are they going to go for a third preview? That's the big question mark around Loom right now. There aren't any concrete indications that I'm aware of right now which way that's going to go. Everybody's hoping that it comes out of preview, but we haven't heard any concrete indications from the JDK team.
Yeah.
No, that's everybody's salivating.
I'm seeing.
I mean, you're starting to see more adoption in the open source communities, like OKHTTP has Loom hooks in it.
Right.
There was talk at ApacheCon of looking at doing those things in Tomcat. I haven't looked at the status of where those issues
Mark's been working on it.
But that's, those are the use cases that people are looking at to say, yeah, Loom is worth the wait, so to speak. So we'll see. We'll see is fine for me. Again, we're all placing bets in different spots.
It's definitely at the hype of the peak of the hype curve.
Peak of the hype curve, but not yet. The benchmark that just tells all is still not there yet. Right?
Yeah, there's nothing that's saying that it's a silver bullet, right?
That
everyone is assuming. Like
It's
it's a peak. We have to go through the trough of disillusionment before we get to reality. There's a reason they're both there. Like we're at the peak right now. It's we've been talking about that quite a bit at work.
No, I like it comes with the promise, right? Because like I was reading how to like start thinking about Loom, and it is one of the things that when you come from traditional thread pool programming, you're like, I need to size my thread pool and all these things. And Loom is like they say, like, you have to think about this how you think in strings. You don't say you're going to have 300 strings running. You just create the thing when you need it and throw it away. And I'm like, it's probably like my own handicap because I've been doing it the other way for so long. But it's like, if that is really the promise and it really works, like I just need this on a different thread and I just create one and ship it away. And that's going to be impressive.
It is, but it's like, that's the impressive when it's like, when you ask like Brian Getz a performance question, it's like, my job is to optimize the JVM. Don't you worry about tricks. Like I'm going to do the tricks. It feels like Loom's not quite there yet, but like again, that's what we're all hoping for, right? We're going to
Yeah,
write
yeah.
the thread per request model, and suddenly it's going to be
It
infinitely.
just works.
Also,
Yeah.
keep in mind, it's, like this is only the first piece of solving this concurrency model. There's structured concurrency, which is
Yeah.
not part of this. It's a separate chap that's
Yep.
still to come. Like there's more stuff. This is the foundation, but there's still more stuff that has to come for this story to be told completely.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was going to ask if anybody.
We're a way off for that. We're
It's a few more PhD dissertations.
exactly. Yeah. You can't-
Say.
Yeah. If Loom comes out in 21, we are still another LTS away from at least from having a full story.
Well, and that's
Everybody wants to be there when Loom lands. Everybody wants to be in part of the conversation, which makes complete sense. Like Quarkus is already saying that they, have rewritten some stuff that works on Loom. We're doing our thing on the spring team to make sure that we're Loom ready. Like everybody wants to be there on that release date. But just like with the releases that Spring just did with around native, that's the first chapter. I firmly believe that Loom, that release, will be the first chapter in the rewriting of the concurrency story.
Yeah, and that's and I think that is the interesting part is usually the platform feature comes in first, and then everybody else needs to like, does it really work, or is it really working for my dependency, right? And because you cannot take advantage, you can start taking advantage, but you cannot fully take advantage of it until like whatever model you're running on top is supported, or whatever dependencies you're writing this on top supports it, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a feature toggleable thing, right? So, I mean, it's just like when G1 was introduced, everybody said, oh, G1's going to be awesome. And G1 has been good.
Yeah.
Like, but when G1 first came into the mix, it was like, you got to turn it on and then you can use it. Our recommendation is if you're in prod, don't turn it on, but mess around with it, see if it works.
See what breaks.
That's kind of where we're at with Loom right now. So, if I were building, working on Tomcat, Loom is a feature toggle. If you want to try it out, flip it on, see what happens.
I mean, we're
the
there right
default?
now.
Yeah. Is
We're
it
there
the
right now.
default? We don't have that conclusive evidence yet to say like it should be on by default. But again, like the theoretical thing is, oh man, if we could just spin up threads without having to pay the cost on the OS, how great would that be?
No such thing as a free lunch.
Has anybody used structured concurrency yet? I know that's in the second preview as
yet.
well.
No,
I
I
have
have
not.
not. I don't know anybody who has played with the structured concurrency API yet.
Yeah. And
It'd
just
be interesting to see.
regular.
I haven't even done any performance tests with Tomcat with any of the Loom stuff. I mean, there's a lot of goodies right now going into Tomcat. Like at ApacheCon, they were talking about stuff they were doing Project Pamina with
Mark's-
OpenSSL. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on right now to play around with. It's like, okay, when is the stuff going to get across the finish line where it's like the way?
Mhm.
This is the new default. We're not there yet.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Maybe
That's
in
why I keep
September.
placing bets. All my teams are writing in Java, so I'm not on the Go and Rust bandwagon yet. Shouldn't even say yet. I don't even know why.
Tired before you jump in.
Yeah.
Bandwagon.
All right. Next one on the news. Twitter settlements. I don't know who put this one.
Oh, that one's mine. So to rewind a bit. So back in November, a guy by the name of Elon Musk sticks his foot in his mouth and ends up buying a company, a big one, Twitter, and proceeds then to lay off about 50% of their workforce.
Over.
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yeah. They announced the layoffs. They told people they were laid off, but there was a work till date that's actually coming up, I think. And with that, there was no information around severance or anything else. Well, that is finally starting to land. In fact, this is news as of yesterday morning.
Recent.
Yeah, a couple of days ago. And it's not good to be blunt. So we're starting to hear reports. This was from Business Insider that Twitter employees that were part of that layoff are now receiving communications in weird ways. We're talking emails that went to spam because they were so oddly structured. And then when they looked at them, layoffs have been a thing this year in general, like Facebook, a whole bunch of other ones. Facebook, I think, offered either 4 or 6 months of severance. Spotify, I think, was another one. It offered 4 to 6 months. My understanding, based on this article, is that Twitter is offering basically 1 month. And then you got to basically sign off that you will never say anything bad about Twitter for your entire life.
Oh my!
There is no end to this. And so there's real debates about, do they sign it and take it at all? Do they pursue legal action? I haven't seen layoffs go this bad in a long time. I mean, IT layoffs are a thing. They're a regular thing. We all kind of sign up for, as being in this industry, we kind of sign up for, you're going to get laid off at some point in your career. You're going to get a severance or something. Like, this is part of the job, if you will. This is not what I guarantee any of these people signed up for.
Probably not.
Yeah. So this was, like I said, I haven't seen layoffs go this badly.
Well, and what it comes down to is like some of the terms that they're asking for. I will not say anything bad about Twitter in my life. Like there's limitations of what you can do in an employment contract. Like, just like in non-compete agreements, people will push that and say, oh, you can't compete for 5 years. Well, there's court precedents that say there's a certain point where if you say that, like, it's not going to hold up in court because you got to make a living, right? You can't prevent people from working at all. There are limits to what these clauses can say. So, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if the right thing is to take the 1 month and sign it and say, some of this stuff is going to be unconstitutional or just not hold up, or if the right vibe is to not take it and just say, F you, I'm going to sue you. I don't know if I can make that call, but the way they're approaching this, they're opening themselves up to people doing that. So there's going to be litigation. I mean, there already is litigation. So
it's really, our people are going to join it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if it's a month worth of severance, like that's almost like the equation, right? Like is it enough for me to like not risk it, or maybe I do want to see what I can get? I don't know. Yeah.
I'm an independent consultant, so I don't get severance. So that's never been a thing for me.
So you're like, oh, I'm going.
Yeah, I get 2 weeks notice. You want to fire me? Go right ahead. That's just life, though. But like, if you're an employee and you sign an employment agreement that is telling you you're going to get specific things if you are terminated,
most of them do not. Okay. I don't know that I've ever seen.
So this is a goodwill. This is a goodwill thing.
Yeah. I don't know that I've seen an IC of employment agreement, individual contributor employment agreement.
Yeah.
That guarantees or includes any type of termination clause.
Parachute or something.
I mean, the U.S. and Illinois, where most of us are is an employment exactly employment will. So like they can just say
goodbye.
Exactly, goodbye, no notice, and you're out. Like that is legally allowed.
Yep.
It's typically not good practice.
No. And
so because of that, you typically see respectable severances as part of a layoff package. Like I said, I don't think there's if I were a Twitter employee, I would probably turn it down. Not so much because of the dollars and cents. I'm pissed off about that. It's that 1 month's salary isn't worth me never saying the wrong thing about Twitter.
Absolutely.
Like it's just not worth that.
I would retain my right to talk shit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can you imagine what
I kind of like talking shit. You wouldn't be able to know, so like it's kind of my thing. So
no, I mean that makes sense. I mean, and again, this is not something they have to offer, but things that companies do offer as like a piece, because I mean, you're going to want to go into hiring. You're going to want to hire some people back at some point. In fact, Twitter has already been in this problem. They overhired and they're trying to bring people back in.
And 1 month for most of us isn't going to make or break the bank.
No, I would agree with you.
In our industry, 1 month salary is not going to make or break.
I would eat the bench time.
Exactly.
Happily.
Exactly.
For the right to say whatever I want. I've already made that decision with most of my stuff anyways. Like that's why I'm an independent. But like, yeah, to say that I can't say anything. And then again, I doubt that's enforceable, but not being a lawyer or a judge or anything like that, it's probably safer just to eat it.
You offer me 6 months, I've got it. That's a different
I'll think about it.
Exactly. That's a different thought.
Exactly.
Like if you don't want me to talk, if you offer me enough money, I won't talk. Like that's basically what it comes down to. And in this case, like 1 month ain't enough.
Yeah. 6-month vacation. Wow. I don't
Oh my gosh.
imagine what that would be like.
Pasture. Oh gosh.
What do you mean? I mean, like,
What would I do?
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't take 6 months vacation. I've always said, like I don't even know. Did somebody win the Mega Millions? Yes.
No, they didn't. So that's rolling over to Friday.
So like, if people talk about winning $1 billion in the lotto, like pay off my mortgage. Get rid of my mortgage.
Exactly.
I'm a different guy. I am a different man without a mortgage. Like that like that's all I want. I don't need $1 billion. I need a couple $100,000. Like that's what I like. It's
See, I got a kid going to college in like a year, so that it's like, you know what, you pay off college, like then the mortgage is something.
Yeah.
But if you didn't have your mortgage, then the college would be basically the same thing, right?
Sure,
Ish.
why not?
Ish.
Yeah.
These days.
We'll see what school we'll see what school they go to.
Yeah, it's true. You already have one at an expensive high school.
We'll see.
Was it Augustana, right?
Yeah.
Augustana, right? That's where they're going, right?
Well, no, that's where I went. I don't know if they'll go. I don't know. Augustana is too close for my oldest, so we'll see.
Damn. All right.
So on to the Twitter
Very
thing.
still
Are we sure that Elon is still going to be in charge here for a while? Or
yeah, because there's a whole vote, right?
Yeah. So Elon has said that he would. So that's a good point. So backtracking, Elon ran a poll on Twitter asking if he should continue to be the CEO. He said he would honor the results. The results were, I think it was like 54 to 46%. It was a narrow margin, but he lost. It said that he should not be the CEO of Twitter. And so he said he will honor that once he can find a replacement. Or I believe his phrasing was something along the lines of, once I can find somebody crazy enough to take the job, or something along those lines. Now, there's two issues with that. Number one,
only two.
two that we have time to talk about.
Sure.
I can open that book.
Number one is, how hard is he going to look? Like when I had people, I used to be a landlord. When I had people break my lease, I was legally obligated to make a best effort to find somebody to replace them, to take over the lease. He has no legal obligation to do any type of best effort search to find a new CEO. So he doesn't have to, like, I'm looking, like, if I find somebody at bar that I might that's
might how it works out.
Exactly. That's number one. And number two, let's not kid ourselves. The guy's still the majority. The guy's still the owner of the company. So regardless of what who the CEO is, they still report to Elon Musk, which means Elon's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yep.
That's
We're giving this guy way more press than he deserves to begin with.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, no, that's
So
true.
moving on.
I'm good with that.
So the next ones were also mine, which is the airlines have had a tough time the US have had a little bit of a tough time over the holidays.
So glad I have not been traveling the last couple months.
So it's funny. So there were two major airline issues in the US. For those of you who are international, you may not be aware of this. Southwest Airlines, right before the new year, there was a snowstorm that hit a large chunk of the US, caused most airline carriers to cancel a number of flights. That was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, though, on Southwest, and caused a catastrophic meltdown of their systems in a way that caused them to cancel thousands of flights for days. And it wasn't just a matter of canceling flights. It was so bad where they were having people on planes, and then they would cancel the flight, and they would have the people deplane but not get their luggage back. I know from personal, I know people that they were supposed to be on a flight. They had gone to the airport. They had dropped off their luggage. They didn't get it back. They were waiting days later to get their luggage back. It was a catastrophic meltdown. And, when you read the articles about what happened, this is definitely something that's been building and building and building. They had a CEO back in the early 2000s. Back in the early 2000s, Southwest was a company that all the other airlines wanted to be like. Like they were the model everybody looked to be like. And the CEO then was a great guy. He understood how the front lines worked and all that. He retired and was replaced by essentially an accountant, and who was looking to optimize and not necessarily cut corners, but he didn't have that connection with the front lines. So he was getting all kinds of warnings of like, we're growing, things are getting old, things are going to break. I don't know what ended his tenure, whether he was fired or retired. But things were left in a bad situation. The new CEO, I think, is only a year or two into his tenure. He acknowledges that there are problems. They're actively working on fixing them. It just turning a company around this big just takes time. And so he was caught, unfortunately, in a situation where, one of the largest carriers in the United States couldn't meet their obligation. And now, people are waiting literally for them to have they're being sued left and right. They're probably going to get dragged in front of Congress in the U.S. It's a bad situation for Southwest.
Yeah, and the tie-in for our show is that I think one of the key failure points that they've highlighted in several articles is technology.
Yeah,
software related to where crews are going to be scheduling software. So, scheduling is a hard problem, computationally very difficult when you're dealing with people. And if you miss one segment, those people are supposed to be in another spot. They're supposed to then fulfill another segment. So it's a combination problem when you have a cancellation and the people aren't where they're supposed to be. Okay, what are the other options for us to do? So it is a software problem to solve. And they were again, from the articles I've read, they're working on dated software that did not do that very well, where their competitors, while the competitors had hundreds of canceled flights where, the crews weren't where we expected to be, but they could put together a schedule that worked. Southwest was apparently in a situation where they didn't know where people were. They weren't able to build a schedule to get back on track. So it just snowballed. Right.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've heard is that, you had crews that were showing up for work, ready to fly flights, but they couldn't be assigned a flight. They couldn't be assigned, all the what it took to clear a plane to take off. All the process that needs to happen that is, automated, obviously, couldn't happen because of the scale of the breakdown in this for Southwest.
Yeah. It kind of speaks to the dynamics of having a software system to do this. Because when Southwest was talked about as the golden standard, they would talk about how they were always ahead of thing on getting, fuel contracts and locking down the price of oil before it spiked up. So they're able to keep their prices down.
Buying oil futures, you bet.
All these things that they did kind of ahead of schedule, requires software, requires planning and engineers that understand how it works. And if you get in a situation with any company where it's we've got this figured out, we're going to coast, eventually get to a point where that model either gets gamed or the model is not what the reality is anymore. And if you don't have software engineers working on it, it's stale and the shit doesn't work anymore.
No, I think
several companies.
I know it's interesting because I heard this adage before where it says any company that is large enough becomes a software company.
Yes. That's what Pivotal was, before we were rebought by VMware. That's literally what we were pitching was that if you don't think you're a software company, you're going to get eaten by somebody who has made that realization.
Right. And because that's what it is. It gets too much to coordinate. If you have only 3 airplanes, you can call in and do all this stuff manually. But once you start trying to optimize on scale, then you get information systems and computers in the mix. Then you are a software company. And the second part that comes out of that is this thing where, because this is really a big case on tech debt, right? It's and one of the things that I always hear is the thing that tech debt works is it accrues interest, right? If you introduce tech debt or you don't handle down tech debt, you don't pay down tech debt, it's and you paid it down a month later, you get a little bit of interest with it. You did your right thing, you tried to address it early enough. If you let it sit for years, that interest just compounds to the point where the interest that you're going to pay is essentially your business shut down for a week, right? And at least, you know, like us at technologists, we are always, it's a push and a pull, and I understand that, like, you know, but we do have to advocate for, let this not happen, let the Southwest experience not happen to where we work, right? Like, you know, if we should raise the alarm if we do see things before they get into a place where we cannot, you know, we cannot work anymore, right?
Yeah, I'm curious if it came down to them being complacent in their systems, because that's something I see at a lot of customers is either they think they have the problem solved or they found a vendor that have solved it for them and they've lost their ability to create software on their own.
From my understanding for Southwest specifically, the issue was lack of prioritization. The front lines, even tech were saying that we need to fix this. And that's why my understanding is the current CEO, before this actually happened, kicked off efforts to do upgrades. To fix this. The problem is he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's steering the Titanic and it takes too long time. Like,
yep. He's
only been in position for a year or two, and like he hasn't had the time to do the level of improvements that are needed to happen.
No, and I'm not trying to assess blame on one person or the other. What I'm just kind of identifying is companies that have a culture where they're constantly investing in the software development process don't generally get in these scenarios because they're constantly tooling on it. They're not saying, hey, we've got it solved, we're just going to lock in for the next 10 years and leave it be. They're iterating on it. They're building the new software. They're adapting to changes in the market.
How do we get better?
Right. It's easy to become complacent if you have a good system. And that's why we were talking about earlier. It's like Southwest was the envy of everyone else. You get complacent. You think you've got the problem solved. It's almost like the software's never really done. It's like everybody likes to say, well, when are we going to be done with this feature or that feature? It's like, we're going to get to a point where we meet the requirements that we defined 6 months ago, but those requirements are going to change by things we learn, by the market conditions. So like companies that, and this feeds into the other thing, that become software companies because they understand they have a scaling problem and they constantly feed the software engineering organizations. They are constantly evolving their software and they maybe don't have this problem. I look at this and I see a company that probably became complacent. They probably thought they were able to ride out the cash cow for a while and see how long it would go. They got burned by it. And then you bring somebody in to fix that problem. Yeah. And then maybe you develop, and if you do it right, you develop that culture again, and then you don't get in that situation for a very long time.
Now that's not the only, so there was another airline situation. This happened actually literally this morning of recording on November 11th.
The FAA thing,
yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. So like, you know, we can go, we can spend the entire time on Southwest, but the FAA actually had an issue this morning as well that grounded literally every plane in the country while they had a stoppage. It sounds like there was issues with their backup systems, that there was a corrupt file that ended up causing them to be down for their NOTAM system, which notice to air emissions. So that's the system that basically tells pilots what they can and can't do, basically, to simplify it.
Yeah, well, I woke up to that headline and I was thinking to myself, man, that's pretty bad. The last time that happened that I can remember was 9/11, that they grounded all the flights.
Everything.
Yeah, 9/11. There have been other localized ones, like about 9 years ago in Chicagoland, there was a fire at the
Aurora. I was actually going out there.
Was that the wheel?
We were taking our daughter to our first trip to Disney World that year on that day. And we were bounced to another flight. We were actually bounced to the Make-A-Wish flight, which is actually pretty cool. But so you're right, like the scale of this outage, but to the point of the difference between what happened with Southwest and the FAA. The FAA is, to my knowledge, is back to normal already.
Yeah. They rolled it back and they were able to fix it.
Yeah. Southwest, literally for over a week, was canceling thousands of flights. It was when the rest of so there was the bad snow, there was a bad weather that caused, basically everybody to cancel a bunch of flights. It happens, it's weather. Everybody else, all the other carriers had recovered. Southwest was still canceling thousands of flights. I remember hearing on one day, I think it was the day I traveled for my cruise on the 29th, Southwest had canceled like 2,700 flights that day. The next closest was Spirit with like 83. I mean, it was
significant.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's something wrong with the carrier.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, from what I've read, it is a software related thing. It's probably something that's fixable. Just, again, especially during this time where it's like a lot of places are looking to make cuts.
Yeah.
If you cut out the software engineering because you think a vendor's just going to handle it for you, these are the things that can happen when you just do that.
It also goes to leadership, right? I mean, like the majority of the tech debt at Southwest, the understanding I have is that it happened under the previous CEO.
Sure.
Right now, my understanding is the FAA does not have a head right now. So like there's nothing, like they're keeping the lights on, but they're not actually, there's probably tech debt there as well that led to something like this.
Yeah.
Obviously a speculation, but like, that's
the way they say the mistake happened says, and I quote from the article, an engineer replaced one file with another, the official said, not realizing the mistake was being made. Oh gosh, that sounds like one of those like dev configurations that just went out and it's whole zeroed in.
It's a YAML file. They added a space where they shouldn't have.
Wrong. Like,
what was there was an Amazon outage once that was because somebody fat fingered a command.
Oh, and it wrote the whole US West, right? I remember.
You know what I'm talking about. Yep.
Yeah. I got rolled. I got steamrolled by that one. Yeah.
It's like, there's processes.
This one is a little feels different. Like this one is an oopsie. The other one is like
yes and no, right? I mean, like we talk about software as being the bits and the bytes. We talk about software being the bits and the bytes, but there's the processes involved in managing it in that as well. So like I would definitely argue that there was still a software problem in that the management of that file was not. There's some debt in that process as well.
Yeah,
but it's not a systematic issue like Southwest that led to the chaos that they had. So I mean, there's a difference there. Like, so again, the FAA may learn from this and they may come up with a process where this becomes statistically very unlikely. Whereas Southwest, it almost feels like more of a cultural thing, right? It's going to take some time for them to get to a spot where they're not vulnerable to this again.
If Southwest is hiring engineers, now's the time.
I don't know. I should look into that, right?
I was joking.
Consulting help.
I was joking around. Whoever writes the Southwest ship is going to be a very rich man or woman when the time comes.
Yeah. All right. Next.
Hourly.
Wink.
The positions I'm thinking about come with golden parachutes, and they don't.
They don't bill hourly.
No, they don't.
They just have a big fixed cost.
Exactly.
Nothing wrong with that either. If you know what you're in for.
You can get it. Good work if you can get it.
You know what you're in for.
All right. Now, so next on the news.
That one's also mine. So this one actually came through the news. Was it yesterday? Yes, it was yesterday. January 10th. So resolved by the Jakarta EE Steering Committee. The interesting thing here is that Jakarta EE 11, so the next version of Jakarta EE, the version that they're currently working on, is going to require as a baseline Java 21. And that was, Jakarta isn't historically known for being aggressive on these kinds of things. And to require as the baseline a version of Java that isn't even out yet is really shocking to me. And
the one thing you have to look at the target release date of Jakarta E11 is not till Q1 of 2024.
Correct. Yeah. So it will be out. It feels very similar to actually what Spring did with Framework 6 and Boot 3. So Spring Framework 6 and Boot 3 announced in November-ish, December, of 2021 that we were going to require Java 17. Java 17 was basically coming out at the time.
That year, though.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then a year later is when Jakarta, when Spring 6 and Boot 3 actually came out. So between the time that, at the time we announced we were going to require it, it felt very aggressive because we were requiring the latest stuff. By the time we released it, it had been out for a year. It's not a big deal. I think Jakarta is going to be in a similar situation, but it's still historically a very aggressive position for that group to be in.
I mean, you're talking about changing your development practice to probably doing a lot of the development against a pre-release because you're working before the thing came out.
Well,
So
I don't know about that. I mean, Java 21 is out.
September.
I feel like it's September.
Yeah. So you're right. 9 more months of it. Yeah. All right.
So
yeah.
you're in pre-release for a significant
Yeah.
amount of time, assuming development is starting now.
Yep,
I mean, again,
Yep.
It's probably
it's
just getting
possible
going.
because those pre-releases exist. You know, you could be working on 20, you could be, you know, a lot of the features are in preview and they're going to be matured. It may kind of speak to maybe Java 21 is not having any of those big boom features that are like, hey, this is a breaking change or a new thing coming out where you're going to really change the way you write code.
Well, but I think the driver for the Java 21 release, the baseline is actually just the opposite. It's the really big feature of Loom.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right, so
I hear you.
That's my understanding is that's the reason they're pushing.
Differently.
It's like we need Loom. Like if it's not there, we got a problem.
That's
Yeah,
a little bit.
I have to be honest. I don't know.
It's a big bet.
I don't know all the features that they're planning on yet for Jakarta E11, but that does make you wonder if they're thinking of some of these features that they're planning to put into 11 are going to require Loom to function properly.
Servlets, instead of thread per request,
I'd expect at least
virtual
a
thread
feature toggle for that though. Like again, like betting so big on Loom that it's like, yeah, this is written to only work with Loom. That's a strong
No, but
statement, right?
Enabling it, right? Like I don't.
Yeah.
Can you write a spec against something in a preview mode? Like,
But the problem is like again,
there's things under the cover that are going to change. I guess so the way I've always imagined Loom working is it impacts your thread pools for your HTTP requests in a Java EE, right? So there's nothing as a customer or a client using a Jakarta EE system that I would expect to change in my code switching to Loom. I would almost expect to be completely transparent.
No, but you don't care. But the implementers of the spec.
The implementers care.
Yeah.
The people writing the code in the thread pools that are serving the HTTP request absolutely care. But I look at the specifications as really be written for the people that are implementing web apps.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'd agree with that.
No, I think those are
some of them
consumers.
I agree with.
There's a lot of them that I think that are really meant for the web app developers to.
Oh no, I agree with that. But I mean, there are expectations that on how things work based on Loom is not a drop-in replacement for traditional threads. We know this.
There are things that you need to do. Yes.
Right.
There's housekeeping.
Yes. And so because of that, like if you are going to allow Loom threads to be an execution option, you need to have
different code bases.
A specification to allow the behavior differences between the two execution models.
I don't know if it's so much as behavior differences, but more of the way I see it is more of a performance gain. Because I don't.
It's not just that though, right? Like, can you do synchronized blocks with Loom? I thought you couldn't.
I think that's the same. Like
I know.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
I thought you couldn't. I know they solved the thread local problem, but I thought you couldn't do synchronization blocks.
Okay.
And so
to your point, that is something that could creep into client code as a limitation.
Exactly.
But that's where I'm going with that, because I mean, most of what I see as impacting Loom in a Jakarta EE sense is in the servlet spec. I don't really expect a lot of that to leak out, but the limitations. JPA, sure. But to say that I'm going to change the way I'm writing my JPA code because of Loom on the client side,
no,
that's where I'm skeptical, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. It's much more basically as an implementer,
Yes.
do I need to give a shit about Loom or not?
Yes.
Like that's the question that the spec writer needs to acknowledge. So as a spec writer, I need to be able to say, you need to support Loom or not. So as a spec writer, if I say you need to support Loom, I need to baseline it on Java 21.
Okay. All right.
If I don't, if I say, I'm not going to require you to support Loom, then you can support back to Java for 8 for all I care.
Okay.
So,
all right. No, I follow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I follow you on that.
And I'm looking at to that same note, Jakarta concurrency certainly could have some features that require Loom, or could make Loom optional. But when you're looking at the implementers, such as Pyara for their application server, they're going to make their managed executor services possibly run with Loom, something like that. Threading within the application server container itself. So in my mind, that would be why you would choose something like JDK 21 as the baseline, so that you could get your containers to start utilizing Loom and taking advantage of the performance benefits.
100%. Yeah. I mean, going back to like what I was saying, if you don't baseline on Java 21, you can't say that you can write in a web app that expects a performance in other aspects that are associated with Loom and make it portable. You can't do that unless you require 21.
Okay.
Yep.
I get it. It's just historically, it's a very interesting position compared to where Jakarta has been historically.
It is, because if you look back at the ages here, Java EE8 and even Jakarta EE8, I mean, these things were working on Java 8. The Jakarta EE developers have been developing on Java 8 until just this past year, really.
Exactly.
We just started to get on 11. I'm ecstatic. I'm running Java 11.
8 to 21.
Yeah, that's
what a year.
It is.
That sounds like a race car. Like 8 to 21 in what year? In 12 months.
Wow.
I know. I'm super excited that this next release of Pyara, I'm going to be able to work with JDK 17. Now, JDK 17 is already functioning with Pyara if you're using Community, but I use the Enterprise Edition. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to using JDK 17. That's a good thing. So I think it's great that they're being aggressive like this.
Josh,
of course. Yes.
Josh, what do you think that'll do to adoption with regards to like we just talked earlier about, Glassfish is, kind of one of the leading ones with regards to implementation. Do you think this will slow down the implementation ramp for at least the big dogs? The WebSpheres, the WebLogics, and when you think of enterprise adoption from there on out?
In my opinion, I think the big ones, it may have a small impact on that. I don't believe that anyone's going to hold up, develop a new version of a container just because it's requiring 21. When you look at people or organizations holding up on going to this Jakarta E11, I think it's the big organizations who have massive code bases that are not planning on going to Jakarta E10, let alone 11. They're going to stay with Java E7 or whatever they're running now, and if you look at the other side of the coin,
that's Java EE.
I know.
Well,
right?
I mean, I think it's a different question. You're asking whether the containers are going to adopt it.
Yeah.
So Josh is saying you don't think there's going to be an impact. I guess my question would almost be back to Spring is what have you, so I don't know that has Spring always been that aggressive with targeting, the runtime ahead of the release? Have you seen any difference in adoption with Spring since you've done that?
So 17 has definitely been an uptick since we made the announcement.
Yeah.
And surprise, we've also seen through other channels that it's actually interesting. So we've had kind of there's been a bit of a life cycle, if you will. So when we made the announcement, things like the analyst community, the conservative end of things, was very much like, you're wrong. Like you're doing this wrong. You're fundamentally wrong. They've come around a lot now. And I think that this goes directly to the upgrade question, like keeping up to date in software.
Yeah.
Every corner of where we look, software upgrades are coming faster and more furious.
Yep.
More than ever.
Yep. Java's
every 6 months, Spring Boot's every 6 months. Like, you look at all of the major libraries that you're looking at.
Yeah.
And there's a constant barrage of upgrades that need to happen.
Yep.
What we've seen in the Spring world is that people are actually having issues prioritizing. There's just so many that you can't get business work done in between. And that's a valid concern. I think this opens up opportunities for things like Open Rewrite, where you've got we've got our own tool, Spring Boot Migrator, to automate some of this stuff. But I think the adoption will get there, but I think that there's going to need to be a cultural shift in the big companies that we all work with, where upgrades are going to have to be proactive and automated.
Yeah.
We're going to have the day of being reactive of upgrades. There's a CVI, I need to upgrade. Like those days are in the past.
Do it before.
Companies have to get comfortable with this rate of change.
Yeah.
And so, this is just an example. Like if Spring making that announcement, everyone was freaking out. I haven't seen the freak out yet for Jakarta. Like it already tells you that this is becoming the new norm. This rate of change is becoming the new norm, and enterprises are going to have to embrace it. They're not. I think we're moving past the days when you can say, "Well, I'm going to skip this upgrade because it doesn't." You have to get comfortable upgrading. That's where we're at these days.
Better off upgrading and maybe running into a 0-day thing than dealing with something that's been out there forever that just got reported yesterday.
Exactly.
Because then I'm going to be forced to do all this work.
Yep.
Right.
In a condensed time frame.
Not on your time frame.
Yeah.
If you do it proactively, you can do it on your own time frame, and you can. This is one thing that I like what Neil Ford said in a No Fluff 15 years ago now. He said, things that are hard, do them more frequently. You'll figure out how to make them easier.
If it hurts, do it more.
Exactly.
Is the quote.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, thank you. And like upgrading hurts. Upgrading today hurts in a lot of cases. Do it more frequently.
Yeah.
Get to a point where you can do it frequently and ease that pain.
What really has, though, made upgrades a little easier is containerization. So, you're breaking apart your monoliths. These big companies that have applications that are still running on the old versions, if they were to take a step back and update their applications to a more modular, approach and do some containerization, they would have easier time upgrading. And I think a lot of enterprise organizations are starting to do that. That makes upgrades easier, in my opinion, because then you've got smaller portions of code that you have to worry about migrating to the newer releases and whatnot.
Well, and you're also making the upgrade somebody else's problem, right? You're saying the container owner is doing the upgrade for you, and you're just making sure your stuff runs on it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about that build pipeline. It's about being able to trust that you can take code X, I can change the dependencies, I can test and build, and you can trust what comes out at the other end. Like you have to get to that point. You have to get to a point where you don't need a human to come in and validate and say, yeah, this works. Yeah, this is right. Like you have to get to a point where I can change a version in a POM file or a Gradle.build file, run my unit test, run my test suite, build, and I have to be able to go. That has to be good enough to go to production.
Let's hope. Yeah. I think that's all right. So I think that is going to be the news. Jakarta EE is coming. I think for the last part of our segment, we're just gonna do year in review. So what were the big things that has happened, folks, this year, this past 2022, which is now it's sailed away. I guess
start out of order, just because I think the one thing that has probably had the most headlines with us has been the latest thing, which has been the tech layoffs. Again, the market kind of shifting back in the other direction. We've talked about it quite a bit, actually, about what you need to do just to kind of work in this market, and I hope this has been valuable to our listeners that have listened to the last couple episodes. Again, we weren't trying to be right or trying to be anything about what was going on, but good developers and good folks, the layoffs can impact anybody. So having a plan in place to deal with that, whether you're at the top of the food chain or the bottom of the food chain, you have to have a plan to deal with that. And hopefully folks have been listening and have gotten some value out of the conversations we've had on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's super important that it has been dominating our space. But there's always a silver lining, and things ebb and flows. I think, like you said, Bob, there was a lot of stuff that people essentially are back on the pool. But even then, I was reading that the ones that are seeking work that cannot find work is still at 1%, which is technically a historical low. There's a name for that on when they're looking at, meaning if you really even if you were laid off, if you go out and try, maybe you don't get this super duper a top range of the things that you were getting before, but there's definitely places for us to land on, and the thing is turning the corner anyway. So this year is the year of the engineer again.
Yep, absolutely right. So just, listen to our prior episodes on that. You'll be just fine. Yeah.
Got it. Another one that we kind of talk about a little bit throughout is trying to see what the conference attendance look like, right? We know that people were just getting comfortable in 2022 to be in person. But if you manage to be and you're comfortable, do try to attend them, because these are one of the things where if they don't see enough attendance, then they start questioning, and it's sort of the conference kind of shut down, right? And for those who don't, who hasn't been the opportunity to do it, the conference is definitely about the content. But a lot of the conference happened what they call the hallway conference, right? Where you get to meet people, you get to talk about other geeks, you expand your network. That is the second biggest, I'll say even the first biggest value out of a conference is that you get to meet live people and expand your network. So if you can't afford it, go for it.
Conferences are the lifeblood of our industry. It is a knowledge-based industry, software engineering. So especially if you're early career, if it's your company is paying for it and you have to put together the use case to justify it, if you're paying for it out of pocket, I encourage you to support your local conferences. These things do not exist without local developer support. So I would just say look into them and support them if you can.
Agreed. And to piggyback on that, user groups.
Yeah,
they're kind of like mini conferences, right? Go to a user group session. That's a great place. That's where you meet a lot of people, especially in your region if you're going to something close by.
Yeah,
I'll never forget my high school guidance counselor told me it's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's what you know and who you know. It is a combination of both. You have to have the skills, but you also need to know the right people to be in the conversation. And conferences, are a place to get in those conversations.
Yeah. All right. Next that happened, another recap. It's major software releases. We got a bunch of stuff. Jakarta EE10 release. And I'm gonna let the next one tell us, Michael.
Talked a little about Jakarta E already. Yeah. So spring had a new one, right?
So we saved spring for this one. So spring doesn't do major generations very frequently, every 3 to 5 years. But this past year, Spring Framework 6, Spring Boot 3, and really a major generation across the entire portfolio happened. Spring Boot 3 was actually released on Thanksgiving in the US. It was a major achievement by the entire team. There were 4 major themes for this round of upgrades. So there was a new baseline. So that was Java 17. There was the switch to the Jakarta namespace. There was some observability capabilities across the portfolio, really making that a first-class citizen across portfolio. Really taking basically what we do is we took Spring Cloud Sleuth, which was in the cloud corner of the portfolio, and moved that all the way to the other end of the portfolio in Micrometer, enabling us to inject distributed tracing into all those foundational libraries. So now we can, just by using Spring at all, you can get distributed tracing out of the box.
Nice.
And then the last one, and probably the one that's received the most press, is the native compilation with and AOT transformations with Graal. And so there we've got, we've probably heard of Spring Native in the past, that experimental project that we've done a ton of work with the Graal team on really seeing what you could do with Graal and how it worked and how it would work with all the dependencies that we depend on. Spent a few years on that, kind of learning what we could and collaborating with the Graal team. And we took that and rolled it into Spring Framework and Spring Boot proper. So now instead of having a separate library that you use for native compilation with Graal, now that is a first-class citizen. It is part of Spring going forward. So if you want to build native applications using Graal, all those features are built into the framework. You don't have to add anything else. And the idea there is that you would be able to take your existing Spring applications and build the native images out of them with minimal changes.
That is awesome.
That's the long-term goal. Obviously, this is a 1.0 release, if you will, of that functionality. This is a journey. We are going to continue to enhance it. Please try it out. Let us know. Feedback is appreciated, but our core use cases should be well covered with regards to what you can do with native compilation. So it's very interesting and exciting to be able to take a Spring application, like you can take Back Clinic, for example, and with minimal changes, run that as a native application with almost instant startup time. So kudos to the team.
Yeah,
that's great.
Awesome. And then for the last, I think that's it, right? Like those were the big topics that we had on this year. So that's it. Happy New Year, everyone. To more beers and more OffHeap episodes, and maybe in person all together.
Maybe
It could happen. I think
up to you, Freddie.
Oh, it's not up to me. I like I said,
it's very much up to you.
My chips are in. I'm gonna travel, so I'm gonna be somewhere where y'all gonna be. So this is gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun year. All right.
Yes.
So for our listeners, Happy New Year, and let's tackle this 2023 in high spirits. This is Freddie signing off.
All right, Bob signing off. Happy New Year's. Happy 2023.
Josh signing off.
This is Michael signing off. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at Java OffHeap. Thanks, everybody. Happy New Year.